I like that shirt. It's very cute.
Hello, beautiful people. Hello, Eric. Hello, Courtney. This
Hi.
is if you're brand new to this, YouTube channel, which has a strike against it, so I won't be able to download anything until tomorrow. Ugh. Anyway,
That's
I
ridiculous.
showed a video of Eric with his underwear, but my pantyhose on. But 3-year-old Annika was doing the same thing, but she didn't have a shirt on, so I'm punished. I'm in timeout for a week. But anyway, we are going to talk about a topic. And by the way, Courtney Dillon's information will be on the screen eventually, but also in the description box. But we're going to talk about the power of being non-judgmental. Not an easy task. And Eric,
No.
love you. I already told you that before we started recording. And Eric apparently has given a lot of material
Mhm.
for questions for us because I don't have any. I will probably come up with some as we go.
Well, he says, first off, he says, I love you, Mom. And
Hello.
he's standing right back here where he always seems to stand these days. Um, so he wants to talk about being non-judgmental today, but it was, I was kind of like tuning in before this call and is there anything you want me to say specifically? And so he had me write down, a bunch of notes. So I'm not going to just sit here and read them, but we can kind of talk about some principles that he was offering because it feels to me like, he said it's not that this is not something we can just say, okay, I'm not going to be judgmental anymore. I mean, it's virtually impossible,
Very
actually.
difficult, especially with
Right.
themselves.
Right. And so basically he wants us to we want to start with the idea that judgment wait, let me go back to my first page. Sorry. Okay, there we are. We want to start with the idea that we first, like anything that we're doing, we want to start to just notice it within ourselves. And so that's like a really, really good start. And notice the amount, okay, he's talking right now, the amount of times you judge yourself in an hour, in he's saying within 5 minutes, in a day, and it can just be as simple as like you're sitting down to write an email and you think, oh, I'm not very good at writing, or,
Yeah.
that example is popping into my head, or you're putting on clothes in the morning and you're like, man, I wish I was 5 pounds skinnier, or
Yeah.
whatever. I
Right.
wish I had this, that, and the other. And he wants us to notice all of these places of self-judgment because they actually keep us away from our authentic self, our true self, and our higher self. Because our higher self does not actually judge us. And it's really hard for us to imagine as humans that we can have someone who loves us unconditionally.
Yeah.
And so it's not to say just stop it one moment, but it's like make it a practice for a period of 3 days. He's saying not even a week, but just set out for 3 days. You're saying, okay, for the next 3 days, I'm going to notice all the ways I speak to myself in a judgmental way.
Well,
And
I think it's
go ahead.
I think it's all rooted in self-loathing. I mean, we've been
Mhm.
beaten up by the world, by parents, siblings, whatever, and so we start judging ourselves. And when we judge ourselves, that is us saying, "Don't be the person you are, which you really should be, but make yourself into something that everybody likes and won't judge."
Absolutely. And it's self-loathing and it's a result of our programming. We're taught that we need to, possibly weigh a certain amount of pounds, or we need to be able to do everything perfectly at the first time. And a lot of these programs, they come in early childhood. Sometimes we bring them in from past lives,
Oh, yeah.
and they're really strong.
Yeah.
And so start to notice like, oh, am I speaking to myself in a judgmental way? He says it's important to notice the places you judge and criticize yourself. And it's also important to not, okay, this is the second key here. So a lot of people who are watching he says right now are judging their circumstances.
Oh, yeah.
And it's very easy to do that. We could say, well, I don't have enough of X, money, time, a relationship, I don't have whatever it is, whatever the thing is that you currently feel charged about that you don't have.
Yeah.
And that you see other people around you having that thing, and then you start to judge, the circumstances of your life as being bad or less than, or, not good. What he wants us to do in those, when we judge something automatically as bad, it he says it keeps us in, there's a mode that it keeps us in somebody did something to me mode, or the bullshit of this.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
Right. Or that's often what, or we're keeping ourselves also in a victim mode.
Right.
So that judgment, even though it's just easy to do, look at the circumstances of your life. It's not easy to transcend them right away, but we have to start thinking differently about the circumstances in our life.
Yeah.
Life is happening for you, not to you. And that's really important. So he says, judgment, you can graduate to the next lesson when you learn from the circumstances of your life, of each lesson that as it's presenting in your life.
Instead of letting it come and become an internal judgment against you.
Right. You might have it. It's not just say this is as easy as just saying don't judge. Like don't judge. Like you may just be like, oh, I'm noticing myself judging that I don't have X. And then you might go to, if I had that thing, my life would be better. If I, all of these things. And in some cases, maybe that's true. But what we do sometimes is we judge the circumstances of our lives so harshly that it keeps us out of learning what is the belief. He's saying, okay, this is important. What is the belief that created this circumstance? Or what is the thought that created this circumstance?
Or the contract. Exactly.
The contract that you beat him to saying that. You're talking to him, obviously. But what's the contract that I have with this person? What am I supposed to learn from this person? Right? There's lots of ways that we can get through and graduate to a different set of circumstances by integrating and learning the lessons from circumstances. So it's not
it's a perception. It's like, instead of being victim, poor me, this is happening to me, you can flip it around and you could be on the offensive and say, there's a lesson here and I'm going to learn, I'm going to find out what it is and I'm going to grow from it. And so
it's like he's showing me panning for gold. Panning for gold. So and you can like find the nugget.
You're a successful student instead of a victim. Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. And that skill alone will change your life, because what we do is we're raising our vibration out of my circumstances are bad. This happened to me. And we're really consciously changing. We're learning the lesson. We're, what contract do I have with this person? And you may not know the answer. It's okay if you're not sure or don't know the answer right away, but you can sort of start thinking about it differently. And that will start helping you initiate the change within yourself.
Okay.
And it does not, this is an important thing. Non-judgment does not mean that everyone we meet or every situation is for us, right? It doesn't mean that, I'm gonna, love everybody, not be judgmental, and that every person you meet is a energetic match for you.
Even the serial killers. Yay.
Absolutely. But see, that you could actually be like, it's sort of like a bypassing when you're doing that. You're thinking, I can't judge that person. And everybody, can have access to me. I don't want to be mean. And it's not even about being judgmental, but it's really about, and he talks about, this is important. the idea that discernment is different than judgment.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
And this is a really, really key, and I think I'll write something about this maybe. Judgment, the judgment creates separation. So when we judge, we create separation. So when we look at somebody, and we're going to get to like a process that he wants us to do with other people in a second. But when we look at somebody and say that person is bad, that person is, we put a label and we judge them, we're creating separation.
Yeah.
Okay. And we're saying that, somehow maybe I'm better than that person, or that person isn't a good person, whatever it is. That's different than, and we can also create separation within ourselves.
Yeah.
So this idea of separation, we can create internal separation from our true self when we're saying, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm, whatever the narrative that we run the program. Okay.
Yeah.
When we are creating separation, we're out of alignment with spirit. We're out of alignment with our true selves. Discernment, on the other hand, is, you're walking, down the street, and you notice somebody and you have a feeling within yourself, I don't know about that person. You're not necessarily going into a whole story, because that's judgment.
Yeah.
You're just saying that's not a match for me, and you're trusting it.
So it's almost like just a simple assess and
correct
create boundaries if necessary.
Absolutely.
Like
yes, we must. It's using our body is like an energetic tracking system, and we can feel, somebody's a match for us or somebody's not a match for us, or we can, we might get a sense, but it's staying out of the story about that person.
Yeah.
That person we understand from our own perspective as part of God, right? As you always say to everybody, which I love, that we are whole and part of God, that we're staying out of the story that person is not part of God. Right?
Yeah.
We're remembering that no matter what, this is really good. He has a lot to say about this, that no matter what, every person, every situation is part of the whole, is part of God. But we're staying out of a story about that person. Right. And we're just saying, not a match. I need, exact in that way.
Deep.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah. So it's important, and not only important, he said a lot of people, sorry, he's calling a few people out. Some people who are listening to this need to develop a little bit better discernment. Okay. But it's different than judgment. Okay.
Y'all don't be hoes. Is that what you're saying?
Something like that. Yeah. Just, notice if you have a bad feeling or you have an intuitive knowing about something, pay attention to that. Don't ignore it. Right. And you're like, because sometimes we might be like, oh, I'm trying to not judge somebody, so I'm going to ignore this. No, that's not what this is saying. We discern that person might not be a match for us, that energetically that might not be, or situation, job, whatever it is.
Yeah.
We can apply it to, but we're staying out of a story. Therefore, that person is bad. Therefore, that whatever job is bad for me, right? We don't need to get in the story. The story is where we create separation from our true self.
It's almost like you've got to remember to respect yourself, your absolute sovereignty over your energy, and set the boundaries that you earned, that you deserve. So it's all about self-respect too. I mean, it's really about self-respect. Everybody in your life, and they, to suck out your energy, then that shows a lack of self-respect and a lack of self-love, for that matter. Absolutely. No, that's exactly what this is. It is about having a lot of self-respect, because when things are not a match for you. And he's saying this is important. You don't even need to know why necessarily. Oh, okay. That's just interesting to me. We might want to into the story. Right. I mean,
you might have a sense that, oh, I just don't, that doesn't feel right for me. That doesn't feel aligned, but you don't need to spend a lot of time in story. Just like you don't need to spend a lot of time in the story about your circumstances. When we get into story, that's when we're judging.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this job is giving an example of a job. Say you're in a job, and there's a lot of people who will resonate with this. You know, you're in a job right now that is not feel like a match for you. Like you're like, oh, my boss is so blah, blah, blah. Or, you know, they're terrible and I need to get a new job. Okay, what? And that may be the case that it's time to look for a new job. It's not to say stay stuck, stay in a
But you don't
job
need
that's
to
not a
read the
fit.
story about it.
But you don't need it, because when we spend so long on, I hate my job, I hate my boss, all of that creates, like he's saying, it creates energy around it, and it actually will keep us there longer. So if we just say, not a match, pull your energy back from it, not a match, put your energy toward new job. What am I creating? You know, and the 369 journal is showing me in my head to mention that to people, because that's very helpful.
Well, yeah, because, you know, maybe things went to shit in the job because your guides are trying to move you to another path, maybe a new career, maybe a spiritual career. So there we go. That's like looking at the lesson your circumstances or the message your circumstances are trying to tell you.
Absolutely. And you can also say something like, if you're not sure, thank you for the lesson. Yeah. I'm grateful for the lesson. And you sort of will intuitively have a sense of what that might be. You know, I learned, this is example, say you have a job where your boss just expects everything from you and he doesn't ever say thank you or something. And or she say thank you, you know, and you could say, thank you for the lesson of learning how much I am worth, or knowing my own self-worth to create boundaries, for example. That's just one example.
Yeah.
And then put your energy toward this new whatever it is, you know?
Yeah.
So, okay. The last thing, and then we can, if you have any questions about this. Okay, it's not as, and he says again, this is not as easy as I'm going to stop being a judgmental person. Like everything, always start with yourself. But if you are noticing yourself, one day you're doing whatever and you're noticing yourself judging someone else, this is a practice for that. He wants you to see if you can notice that quality, or see if you have that quality within yourself somewhere, and observe it.
Give an example.
Notice, for example, you're like, oh my gosh, my sister is so critical of me. She's always criticizing what I do. This must be somebody who's watching, always criticizing what I do in my life and blah, blah, blah. So you're judging that person for being critical. One, start to notice, am I critical? Where am I critical? Of others, right? Start noticing that within yourself and look for the feelings underneath it. Sometimes, for example, like if a family member, we tend to, have big lessons with primary family members.
Oh, yeah.
Right? But say we're noticing this person is critical of you, or you feel criticized or whatever, that person's so critical, you can start to notice the part in yourself that's hurt, that needs to heal.
Oh.
Right? That always felt, he's saying not enough, or less than, or you don't measure up in some way. So that can point an arrow, which is showing me an arrow, point an arrow in the direction of the part of you, often from when you were a kid, that needs to heal.
Yeah.
And if you don't know how to do that, you can just imagine meeting yourself at whatever age is coming to you, and sit with that child.
Yeah.
Sit with that child. even if you can't picture them. A lot of people say, well, I can't see anything, I can't picture. You can feel that child and ask that child, like, give that child a voice, like, what will help you heal, and then do that thing for yourself. I also have an inner child class on my website that could be really helpful for some people.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So I don't have much to say. I know that I really don't judge myself because, I'm obviously I have myself warts and all, but I will do things endearing in my, just like, oh, you're such a dumb if I do something stupid, but it doesn't bother me. I'm not judging myself. It's just like, oh, well, Lisa, oh, mom, that kind of thing.
But he's saying you've worked on it though.
Yeah. But it doesn't bother me. I know I'm clumsy. I know I put my foot in my mouth sometimes and all that, but hey, that is my authentic self. Love it or leave it, baby. So, and I have learned to love it and leave it. Love it, not leave it. Okay.
Yeah, not leaving. But yeah, exactly. Like, but what he's talking about when you say that, what he's responding is that you've learned to be like, love the parts of yourself that are quirky or a little different, or, that you may have felt judged for in the past. True. In some way.
Yeah, true.
Right? Like maybe when you were growing up, you were like, well, I sometimes stick my foot in my mouth and oh my God, I can't, and just beat yourself up about it. Right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. My father would call me despistada, which means like, oh no, here's Prime, Amazon, like kind of like confused or whatever. Space Cadet was another one. So yeah, but I don't care. It's just I'm spacey because my mind is going everywhere, man.
Well, you're
extracting information from the universe.
Also, it's like when we're judging these qualities within ourselves, certain qualities that we judge within ourselves could make us really good at something. Like we don't know. Yeah. I mean, and I'll just give you an example. He's telling me to say it. I sometimes judge myself because I used to actually, and I'm working on it, because I was like, sometimes I'll leave drawers open, or I'll just I'm good at I can talk to, spirits and be a medium and do all these things, but it's harder and I have to work more at being very grounded. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I work at it and I still work at it. And so it's like, sometimes we have gifts in certain areas and we'll have, what we could consider deficits in some areas. And so it's like you're describing, just have exactly
a yin and yang thing. No, me too. That's I think why I'm clumsy, because I'm like in another world, in another universe. I don't know, and I don't care.
So notice that
I need to put an orthopedist on retainer, though.
It's funny. Notice that quality within yourself, and then you can, when you notice like, oh, I criticize a lot or I do this a lot, you can have compassion for that other person.
Yeah.
And that's when you connect back to the whole,
yeah.
The part of God. So it's like, notice that part of yourself. Yeah. And it's not notice that part of yourself so that you can start judging yourself for that thing. But it's like, oh, I do that too, you know.
And look at everybody and say, you're a whole and part of God. That's it. That person is a whole and part of God. That's all you need to know.
Right. And he said you are correct. And he's laughing. It's not that you have to go hang out with serial killers or something like that, it's not that you're discerning. That's not right. You're discerning.
Right.
That's not
using your brain unwisely versus your heart, where you assess instead of judge. Yeah.
Exactly. And this can help you actually move your life forward in the way that you want it to go, that you're creating with spirit, because you're not looking at whatever circumstance you're finding yourself in and saying like, it's bad. Yeah. Right. It could be like, wow, I have some, cleanup on aisle 7, he's saying, to do around the issue of money.
Yeah.
I must have some stories or programs that have created this circumstance for myself and I find myself in of not believing I can make enough money, or getting money but then not keeping it, or whatever the story is. And that's where you find empowerment, and that's how you can actually change the circumstance of your life, is when you actually go and do the cleanup.
Yeah. On
right?
aisle 7.
Yep, on aisle 7.
Okay, no. But why Lauren's trying to get it. Yeah, because like a lot of people are struggling financially with inflation and all that stuff. And so,
And he's not to say that that's not hard and true.
oh God, it's
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
But then they look at other people who are just having no problem and they're rich and all that kind of stuff and unaffected by the inflation problem. So then they get jealous. What can you tell people that not only judge themselves for not having enough, but also judging the other person by no fair? I'm jealous of you.
Jealousy is usually a sign, and we'll talk about this in the context of money. This will make sense. Sign that you need to give yourself more of something. Okay. And so maybe it's not as easy as, oh, I would give myself more money if I had it. Right.
Oh God. Yeah.
Right. So it's not as easy as that in the circumstance, but you can give yourself, and this is important for everybody listening, because inflation is a problem.
Yeah.
You can give yourself something that money can't buy.
You
always can. Even if you can't, give yourself, you're feeling like, oh, I'm really strapped and I'm really worried about how I'm going to pay my bills, XYZ. You can give yourself a break. You can give yourself a mental break from thinking about it. You could go work out. You could take a walk. You could play cards with your kids. You could do something that reminds you that you are part of God and that you are a creator and you have the power to change your circumstances. And that's really important. So
and when you see other people who are just rolling in dough, know that, hey, it's possible, because abundance is infinite and scarcity is truly an illusion. I know it's really hard to wrap people's mind around, but hey.
Jealousy will, and we all struggle with it sometimes. Jealousy will almost like block the circumstances for you. So if you're like spending your time being jealous of this person, jealous of that person. And another example he uses right now, money's a huge topic, but relationships. We can look at, this person seems like they have the perfect situation, relationship. They met that perfect person and I don't have that person. How come?
Yeah.
Well, we could spend a lot of energy, and that's all energy. That's all thoughts that are creating energy and creating realities.
Yeah.
Being jealous. Or we can say, it's like, okay, what can I give to myself right now? How can I love myself more?
Yeah.
Calling in that person that will be right for us.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Sounds good. I don't have anything else. Courtney, do you?
He says, thank you for coming to my TED Talk today.
Oh, you had the best TED Talk, sweetheart. All right.
You're welcome, Mom. You're welcome.
Awesome. And Courtney and I are going to next do a session about Atlantis and Eric's root, my roots in it, and a lot more about how the downfall of Atlantis kind of parallels what's going on now in our society. So
it should be interesting. I'm excited.
Me too. I better go read some more of those books. All right. I love y'all. And be sure you please subscribe. We're trying hard to get to 100,000.
We're almost there. You're almost there, aren't you?
I don't care.
Okay.
All right. I love y'all. Bye, Courtney. Bye, Eric.
Bye. Thank you.
Love
Bye.
y'all.
Love you too.